we're going to be looking back at the life and times of Lanny Poffo. He died February 2nd, 2023 at the age of 68. Very, very sudden as well. The news was broken by Jim Duggan on his Facebook page. He says, with a very, very heavy heart, I've been asked to let everyone know about the passing of our friend and colleague Lanny Poffo, the genius. R.I.P. Lanny. I actually gave my thoughts on my own channel, and somehow that went great. 50,000 people watched what I got to say about it. Anyway, the point is that he was my first ever interview. And I really meant it when I said, if that had gone really wrong, I may have never done a second, let alone hundreds now, as it is. He exercised, constantly. I think he was a teetotaler. He was on the Dr. Joel Furman diet of mostly berries, onions, mushrooms, seeds, etc. He was incredibly health conscious. And the sad state of affairs is that sometimes just genetics, you can't beat genetics sometimes. And, a huge surprise, sad surprise for everybody.
What was the cause of his death?
We don't know yet. We don't know.
No,
I mean, I can speculate, but apparently it was very sudden. So maybe it was a heart issue. But as I say, I don't want to speculate. I
wonder why they won't release that, or nobody said anything about that.
What are your first memories of Lanny? Because you did have, if not his first match, one of his first matches.
I was reading that the other day. His first match was against who, you say? What's this guy's name?
Oh, it's some scrub called Wayne Cowan. I don't think he ever made it in the business.
Yeah. He'll never make it. Yeah, he'll never make it. He need well, I talked a little earlier about, or maybe in a podcast about when I started, I was greener than grass. I didn't know anything. So imagine putting me and Lanny in the same ring together. We're both greener than grass, but yet they put us in there, and I didn't think it was a bad match because I was probably beating the crap out of him. He was beating the crap out of me, so we just didn't know any different. But yeah, I did have his first match, and he did some kind of a gimmick. He would do cartwheels in the ring, and he was actually doing Adrian Street, not quite as, forcefully as Adrian would do, but he was trying to do the effeminate male gimmick. I don't think if he realized that's what he was doing, or maybe he was just trying to do himself. I don't know. And he was a baby face and I was the bad guy. So I don't know how some of those guys felt cheering him when he was doing this and posing in the corner and all. But
was it like an Argentina rocker kind of thing? Almost like a ballerina kind of thing.
And he was very agile. He did a lot of crazy stuff. But he was not a great worker, but a good one. And of course, at that time, basically what that was for me was a training session, really. I was getting paid to train, and he was too. And the only reason he was there was because of his dad, Angelo Poffo, which was a big name, I guess, even before my time. But he had gotten Randy into the business. And Randy, when I first met him, was doing not a green lantern. What was he doing? Some kind of mask gimmick. He would throw the Spider-Man. He was doing the Spider-Man gimmick with the mask and all. And I was in Atlanta. So I remember when they came in, we lived in this place, this little apartment condo called the Falcon's Rest. And it was right next to the airport runway. My God. And it's in Atlanta. Believe me, those planes started coming in and leaving at 3:00 in the morning. Oh, they'd blow you. Seriously, I could look out my window and see a plane. It would be like, I don't know, 600, 700, 800 feet away. And when they took off, it was loud. And when they landed, it was loud. I eventually learned to sleep through that. But that's where we lived, and they lived right down the hall from me. So I got to know Randy pretty well then, and Lanny at the same time. What was I going to say about Lanny? And we would actually work our matches out during the afternoon. He'd come down and said, "Hey man, I forgot. Wait a minute, I'm doing my Savage impression." he had a distinctive voice, and he was actually a very intelligent kid. He really was, and he was just different. And if you take Randy and Lanny, if you saw them, you would never believe they were brothers. I mean, I always thought that the daddy was different, but apparently it wasn't. I never learned of it anyway. But they acted nothing like brothers at all. Randy was a tinderbox. I mean, you could set him a flame like that. It didn't take a lot either. He'd just go, "Oh, whoa, he's raising hell." Lanny, you couldn't actually throw a grenade at him and make him hot. He'd just say, well, he'd take it and throw it out. And just, he was so laid back. They were just completely different. And a lot of times when Randy would get in a beef, this is later on, when Randy would get in a beef with somebody in the wrestling business or whatever, Lanny was the peacemaker. He'd go over there and he'd say, let's do this and let's do this. And because I don't know, but they were totally different. But had his first match and he went from there. You know who else I had this first match? We'll talk about this another time. Okay. Jake the Snake, they said. And I didn't know it was his first match. I read that.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'll put that in the next episode. We'll have to bring that up and then we'll try and figure that one out. You told me that Lanny, when you first met him, he was sort of book smart, but had absolutely no common sense whatsoever. Like he didn't know how to do anything in the real world.
Oh, nothing. He didn't even know how to put oil in his car. He didn't know how to change oil in his car. I mean, I grew up down south, and those are some of the things you learn early because you're not going to be. I grew up dirt ass poor. So you didn't take your car in for an oil change. We didn't have $8 for an oil change. You went and bought your oil and you did it yourself. But he didn't know how to do that. He didn't even know how to check his oil level. He didn't know how to go in there and pull the stick out and look at it. He didn't know that. He didn't know anything. He was book smart, but in life, he was just clueless as he could be. And a lot of things he didn't know. And I used to ride with him a little bit. And he would tell me, no, he didn't study this, or he was good at poetry. He wrote poetry later on, but he read those type of books. And I could talk to him about it. I didn't mind talking about it. But he was in common life and in everyday things. Let's say a door come off the hinge. He didn't know how to fix it. He didn't know anything. But it would seem, even though if you didn't know how to fix it, you could look at the problem and say, well, this looks like it goes here. And then you look down at the bottom and see how that was attached. I don't think he ever put that together. And so I'm wondering, did he ever get married?
I think he did, yeah. Yeah.
Because I saw a picture of Randy and Miss Elizabeth, and they didn't have any kids. And I think I saw Lanny and a woman, a lady, and there was a small girl there. But I knew Lanny, I knew Randy didn't have kids with Miss Elizabeth at all. He was only married one time anyway. No, he's married twice, I'm sorry. But he never had kids.
I think Lanny did I think he's got a daughter.
Yeah. Okay, now he was living Oh, somebody called me the other day about this, said he was living in somewhere down in Latin America.
Ecuador.
And I heard it was Ecuador. And then I heard him do an interview. He said it's a long way from Quito or Ecuador. And I'm thinking, I've really never known anyone from Quito, Ecuador. And somebody asked me, they said, why was he living there? You know why he was living there?
Yeah, I think I do, but you tell me.
Well, it was cheap. Because the Poffos were probably the cheapest people that I've, not only in wrestling, they're the cheapest people I've ever known. Because Angelo, and when they were all together, Angelo had what kind of car did he have? But an expensive car. But anyway, he would pile them all in that car and they'd all ride. And they'd all split the gas. If the gas was $6.57, that would be divided by 3. And they would pay $2.22 a piece or whatever it came out to. I mean, it was down to the penny because Angelo, he invested in the stock market, and he told those kids, he said, take care of your pennies, take care of your nickels, and the dollars would take care of themselves. And both of them grew up with that mentality, especially Randy. Randy, he was, even when he was in the WWE, and when Miss Elizabeth was with him, and she was making money too. But they would rent the cheapest car that they could rent. Most guys look for a comfortable car. They don't worry about, say it's $20 more a day or whatever it was back. He would rent like the cheapest car, the $8 a day car. That's what he'd rent. And he'd make the towns. Of course, they only had one room price they had to pay. They didn't have to pay 2 rooms. They stayed in the same room, so they saved money there. And they went to like all-you-can-eat buffets a lot. But so he hated to spend money. The cheapest guy I've ever known, because I made a trip with him a couple of times, and it got down to the penny. I forgot what we used to charge for trance. We called it trance, like if you rode with somebody. Say I rode with you to Savannah. And I forgot the price back in those days. But it was like you would charge by the mile. It was either 2 or 3 cents per mile. But it kept you from taking your car and wearing your car out. But I went with him sometime, came back, and it was like I owed him, I came up with that figure, $2.22. It was something like that, $2.17. I said, okay, here's $2. No, man. I need my 17 cents. I said, and I thought he was ribbing. I went, you're shitting me, right? He said, no, I'm not. And I said, I'm the big spender. I gave him a quarter and I told him, keep the change. And he kept the quarter. So, and the reason he was living in Quito, Ecuador, is because I think you can, I read this the other day, you can go to some places in Latin America, and for $2,000 or $2,500 a month, you can live well. And I don't know when that was printed. I think it would be more now, but I mean, you could have everything. I mean, a nice place to stay, and your electricity was somehow subsidized by the government, or it's not very much, and your cable's not very much. And I said, hell, I might move down there myself. But that's why he was down there. And he didn't have a woman. He didn't have a wife. So somebody told me, and I'm not going to say who, but they said he hired 5 housekeepers. And these housekeepers were all 19, 20-year-old Ecuadorian, good-looking females. So,
that's one thinking, for every day of the week.
Yeah, I said, Lanny, you did it right, I guess. But I hope he was happy. And I think he was. And I think he left the United States because his family is gone. His mom's gone. Angelo died years ago. I mean, so did Randy, died years ago. So, and I don't know if he had any cousins that he even cared about or whatever. And Angelo also served as a coach for them about the business and how it was. And so they had a good thing going. And that's why I'm going back to why he lived in Ecuador. The main reason was because it was economical on the checking account, because Lanny had to be loaded. He got what was left of his father's estate. And Randy, I think Randy left him a lot too. So I'm saying he may have been sitting down there with millions of dollars, no telling how much.
I believe that Lanny was teetotal, or at least he rarely hung out with the boys after the matches.
Never. Never.
So I suppose who were his closest friends in the wrestling business when you knew him?
I don't know. I don't think he really had any close friends in the wrestling business. Lanny was, by and large, a loner that kind of stayed to himself, was friendly to everybody. Hell, you couldn't get mad at him because he was too friendly. He'd say, "Hey, how you doing?" And it's like he was very friendly, and he gave nobody a reason to be mad at him for anything. But I don't think I know of one close friend that he had. Of course, we all know each other, but as far as hanging around, he didn't drink. He damn sure didn't do drugs, and he didn't smoke dope. So, and he lived a very healthy lifestyle, which stunned me when I heard that he had passed away. I went, from what? I mean, here's a guy that worked out. Basically, he did not so much with weights, but he would do squats and free exercises. And probably, I don't think he was a runner either, but he stayed in shape. He was probably never over 220, 210. And Lanny's kind of tall too. He's probably maybe 6 foot tall, but he stayed in shape. So, and that's why I never could imagine what he died from. I'm still waiting for that answer.